If you just found out that you're pregnant, congratulations. It is such an exciting time, but you might be thinking to yourself, I know I'm pregnant, but what do I do next? My name is Sophie from Sophisticated Motherhood, and I'm going to talk you through all of the obvious and maybe not so obvious things you should do right after you find out that you're pregnant. One of the first things that you should do is contact your doctor. If you don't have an OBGYN, you are going to need to look for one. It's important to reach out once you know that you're pregnant so you can get on their schedule and figure out what their timeline is. Every doctor's office is different in the way that they might do this. Some will have you come in for an appointment to confirm your pregnancy, which typically just involves a urine test and a quick conversation with either a nurse, a PA, or your actual doctor. Others will have you come in and have your first ultrasound, but might make you wait till 6 weeks, 8 weeks, maybe even more. So just keep that in mind that once you find out that you're pregnant, you're not necessarily going straight into the doctor's office and going to see an ultrasound and going to see your baby. There's a waiting period that's usually involved. And if you didn't know this and this is your first pregnancy, another thing you should think about trying to do is figuring out your due date and how far along you are. Once you have your first or maybe even second appointment with your doctor, they might adjust that due date, but it goes based off of your last missed period, and that is actually when your pregnancy starts. So the first 2 weeks of pregnancy, you're not actually pregnant. In a typical 28-day cycle, women will conceive 2 weeks after their last period. If you have a longer or shorter cycle, that is going to vary a bit, and that's why your due date might be off a little bit, but you can also find calculators online. I will link one in the description box below where you can adjust your due date and have it calculate your due date based on your cycle length and your last period. So it will account for that, or you could do it if you were using ovulation tests. You could tell it when you think you conceived, and then it'll give you an estimated due date based off of that. But again, your doctor may likely adjust it after your first appointment or after the first ultrasound, where they can actually find a fetus and measure it and base your due date based off that. The next thing that you will probably want to do if you didn't do this first is figure out who you want to tell that you're pregnant. You might want to tell your partner or spouse right away. You may have one close friend that you want to have as a confidant that you can tell them that you're pregnant while you hold off on telling others. It is completely up to you. I think the only advice I would give, because unfortunately I've experienced both sides of early pregnancy. I have a beautiful baby boy, so I had a very successful pregnancy and a healthy pregnancy, but before that I did have a miscarriage. So I know what it's like to tell people that you're pregnant and so excited and have to go back to them and tell them that unfortunately you had a miscarriage. And I think as long as you're okay with telling somebody that you had a miscarriage or that the pregnancy didn't continue and it didn't work out the way that you had hoped for it to go, then tell as many people as you want, as early as you want. Just keeping that in mind that some people typically like to wait till after the first trimester just because the risk of miscarriage does reduce significantly. If you're somebody that's had a miscarriage in the past, or if you have a lot of anxiety around that, I will also link in the description box below something that I found to be really helpful, which is a calculator you can use online. You can put in your age at conception, your height and weight, your number of previous pregnancies that were both successful and ended in miscarriage, and it will tell you your percent chance of having a successful pregnancy. So it can be really helpful to see something like 94.5% chance that everything is completely fine. I just really liked looking at it in that positive light, and that did really help me out a lot. Some of the other obvious things that you should start doing when you're pregnant is taking a prenatal vitamin. You will also want to obviously stop drinking, or if you're participating in any drugs or anything else like that that you shouldn't be doing when you're pregnant, make sure you stop that immediately once you find out. You'll also want to look at the food that you're eating as well as caffeine intake. And this can be a little bit of a controversial topic because there are opinions where some women will cut out certain things and others will say it's okay, and there's different studies that you can find out there that say both ways. So do a little bit of research for yourself, figure out what you're comfortable with. For me, a really good rule of thumb is not to eat anything that's raw or undercooked. As long as something's fully cooked, I typically feel comfortable eating it. There are exceptions like high mercury fish and things like that, but if there is something raw, I try and avoid it. Things like soft cheeses, a lot of women will avoid. I will usually eat soft cheeses if I know that they're pasteurized, which most soft cheeses in the United States are pasteurized. If you buy it at the grocery store, you can check the label and make sure it says that it's pasteurized. If you get it from a restaurant and you feel uncomfortable, just skip it, but do whatever works best for you in terms of food and reducing your caffeine. I know some women later on in pregnancy will have a glass of wine here or there. Others don't feel comfortable doing that at all. I personally did not feel comfortable doing that, but it's completely up to you, and make sure you do your research and just do whatever works best for you. Your first instinct might not be to look at all of your makeup, skincare, and beauty products and make sure they're pregnancy safe, but that is something that you're going to want to do and do early on in your pregnancy, just to make sure you aren't putting things into your skin that will absorb and could potentially impact the fetus. I found that the majority of my cosmetic products actually happen to be pregnancy safe. There are certain ingredients that you're going to want to avoid. I am going to put in the description box again a website that I really like where you can look up by brand all of the products that you have, and it's a pretty comprehensive list. And this website includes all of the products and says whether they're safe for pregnancy, if they're safe for nursing, or not safe for pregnancy, but they're safe for nursing, and it lists all of the different things. So I go through all of my products and then I put a little mark on the products that are either safe for pregnancy or not safe for pregnancy. For me, because I have just a few products that are not safe for pregnancy, I just put a little red dot on the bottom of all of them. The website also does explain some of the ingredients that you want to avoid. I found something really interesting was that this website explains that typically hair care products and powder products aren't as much of a concern. So you don't have to worry too much about every single powder and eyeshadow you put on your eyes. A lot of it is the serums and lotions and all of that stuff that can absorb into your skin. That includes things like sunscreen. You're gonna wanna make sure you have a mineral-based sunscreen. Typically, the main active ingredient will be zinc oxide, as opposed to a chemical sunscreen. The physical mineral sunscreen will block the UV rays rather than absorbing into your skin. So that's something you're gonna wanna look out for as well. Another thing that you might not have to make adjustments for in early pregnancy in your first trimester, but later in your second and third trimester, is your workout schedule and your workout routine. It's important to think about it in your first trimester because oftentimes that's when women aren't feeling as well during their first trimester. There might be some morning sickness going on, and you're gonna wanna come up with a sustainable workout routine, maybe some prenatal workouts that are a little bit easier in the first trimester. But in the second trimester, you do need to do your research on pregnancy safe workouts because there are certain things that you should not be doing. A lot of it is obviously ab focused and different positions. You're going to want to limit how much you lay directly on your back in your second trimester, twists and turns and stuff like that in both the second and third trimester. So I just found a workout schedule that goes from the beginning of pregnancy all the way through the end of pregnancy. Again, I'll link that in the description box below. I found it to be really helpful during my pregnancy because it took all of the work out of it. And they were just workout videos and a full schedule of what to do every single week of pregnancy. And I tried to keep up with it as best as I could and felt like I had a really active and healthy pregnancy because of that. Another thing you might not think about is to start documenting your pregnancy from the very beginning. That includes documenting yourself and what you look like physically. You might want to take a before picture of when you find out that you're pregnant so you know what your body looks like. I really enjoyed taking pictures every week through pregnancy. I didn't start taking them until week 9, maybe with my pregnancy, but I chose to take a photo with the fruit that matched the size of my baby every week. So if you want to do something cute like that, or take a photo in the same outfit every single week, or maybe hold a sign that says the number of weeks pregnant that you are, it would be fun to start that as early as possible so you can see the entire progression. But even if you don't want to do that and want to just take like a before photo so you remember where you started, that is completely up to you. But another thing you should think about documenting that I have absolutely loved is having a pregnancy journal. I look back on it often. I also have a baby journal, and they're so much fun to look back at. I started documenting from the moment that I took my first pregnancy test and how excited I was. I had certain parts where my husband wrote in what he was thinking, and it was a really great way to track all of my symptoms, how I was feeling emotionally, physically, all of that stuff, and add some photos into it as well. And it will will be something that I pass down to my baby when he gets older. He'll have his full set of a bump/pregnancy book, a baby book. I'm doing a toddler book, and then I do plan on doing a elementary school through 12th grade book as well. So he'll have this whole little set of books. And if you start it in pregnancy, then you can have that full complete collection. This might seem so far in the future, but it's actually time to start thinking about childcare and what you're going to do with your child if you do work or you're unable to take care of your child full time and you need some help. There are numerous options with things that you can do. You can do a nanny sharing program. You could do a daycare facility. You could do an in-home daycare. So start to research all of those different options and figure out which one you're most interested in. If you do choose the traditional daycare route, that's typically the option that you need to plan the farthest in advance. Sometimes you may have to notify them in early pregnancy to get on a waiting list. Sometimes those waiting lists can be as long as a year, so you are going to want to figure out what childcare plan you want and then figure out potentially what daycare you actually want and make that decision and contact that daycare quickly. If you're thinking more the nanny route, that's something that you shouldn't worry about in early pregnancy. For me personally, I had 3 months of maternity leave, so I didn't even start looking for a nanny until I was on maternity leave. Because if you're contacting a nanny in early pregnancy and you're telling them that you want them 9 months from now or longer, they aren't going to know their schedule that far in advance. They're going to want to find another family and another form of income before that. So if you're going the nanny route, don't stress out this early. Something fun that I did was downloading a few pregnancy apps just to track my pregnancy. They show you cute images about the size of your baby, tell you the length and weight on average that your baby might be per week, explain symptoms that you might be feeling, what's going on with the baby's growth and development. Some of them even include forums. There is one that I really like. Here, I have my phone with me. I really like the What to Expect app because it has a community tab, and I joined the community for my son's birth month and year. So they have one for every birth month and year. So when I found out I was pregnant, I joined that group, and everyone's talking about all the different pregnancy symptoms they're seeing and feeling. Some were saying, is this a positive line on my pregnancy test? And now that my baby is 1.5, all of the same women are in there, and we're talking about what our kids are going through now, what our toddlers are experiencing. And though I'm not somebody that ever posts anything, I just find it comforting to look at what other people are going through, and you can search and all of that. So I will leave the names of a few of the pregnancy apps that I really like, and actually some of them turn into childhood apps. The last thing I'll say is that it's easy to get carried away with all of these things. Remember, pregnancy is 40 weeks long. You have an awful long time to figure all of this out. Don't panic about figuring out all of your insurance issues and what specifically you're going to do with work. It can be a good time to start beginning to look into those things. If you are currently living in an apartment or with your parents and you want to make a move to a home or a larger space, or you have an office that you need to clear out to be a nursery, start thinking through all of those things, but you have more time than you think. Time, for some reason, seems to stand still with pregnancy. Then your baby is born and time flies by. So know that you have a really long time to get yourself prepared. These are just a few ideas of things that you might want to do right after you find out that you're pregnant. If I missed anything and you want to leave a comment below so other people can see what ideas you have, I would love to hear what you did or what you think you're going to do now that you found out that you're pregnant. Again, congratulations if you did just find out that you're pregnant, and I'm so happy to have you here with me on this motherhood journey. I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, but until next time, I will see you all later.